Hi, everyone. Welcome to our panel entitled Industrial Exoskeletons, Combining the Power of Robots with Human Intelligence and Adaptability. My name is Marisol Barrero. I'm the Global Ergonomist with Amazon Web Services, and I'll be introducing our panelists in just a little bit. First, I want to quickly walk you through the definition of an exoskeleton in case you're not aware. So formally defined by ASTM F48, which is the first thorough standard on the use of these devices. An exoskeleton is a wearable device that augments, enables, assists, and or enhances physical activity through mechanical interaction with the body. Now you see a list here from Exoskeleton Report, which is, by the way, an amazing resource if you like to get exoskeleton related news. And they have information on every single type of exoskeleton out there. You can see the majority are in the medical realm where these really were born. And now these, of course, are going to the industrial, military, and now even some consumer areas as well. Exoskeleton news is all around us. So from the technology outlets like robotics and automation news to more mainstream outlets such as the Wall Street Journal and just your evening news. So it's really no surprise that some groups are emerging around the use of exoskeletons. One of those groups is AEXG, or the Automotive Exoskeleton Group. So it's born in automotive, yet has definitely expanded beyond that realm. It's a group that's sponsored by the Wearable Robotics Association, and it was founded in 2018. AEXG creates an exoskeleton community of users, producers, and interested parties to openly exchange information. To exchange information way before it's out in the mainstream, and to exchange information before you can read about it in a journal or the news. The mission of AEXG is to support the evolution of exoskeletons for industry in order to promote quality of life through wearable technology. I don't have time to go into every single member, but you will see here a representation of our current membership, which is full of users, producers, and interested members in academia and government agencies. Our panelists today are members of the board. So I'll be your moderator for today. Again, Marisol Barrero. I started this group. I co-founded it actually with a gentleman from BMW, Frank Baciro, back in 2018 when I was with Toyota Motor North America, and currently sit on the board. So the board members of this group will be your panelists today. So first we have David Brodie from Cargill. We've got Ryan Porto from General Motors, Bill Ballot, who is with the ASTM International and the Exoskeleton Center of Excellence. And last but not least, we have Sam Reimer, who is with Ottobock, who is a producer of these devices. So now we're going to go to our panel. So for the first question, the panelist is going to give a background on himself and then talk about the exoskeleton activities and focus areas in the current organization. So we're going to start with Ryan, and then we're going to move on to David, Sam, and finally Bill. Go ahead, Ryan.
Thanks, Marisol. My name is Ryan Porto. I'm a technical specialist in ergonomics at General Motors. I have about 15 years of experience as a program and plant ergonomist. The last 4 years, however, I have been the lead for ergonomic research for new tech and wearables. This includes exoskeletons and collaborative robots. I'm also the global lead for immersive and virtual human simulation activity for manufacturing ergonomics. And as you mentioned, I'm currently co-chairing AEXG with David Brodie this past year. It's been a very rewarding experience. Very happy to be working with this group. Member of the task force at United States Council for Automotive Research, that's USCAR, where we do joint research project focusing on digital human modeling and US ergo standards. That's between GM, Ford, and Stellantis. And I was an ergonomist on Project V, supporting the ventilator builds with Ventec in 2020 at the start of the pandemic. Some current, going forward, looking at the current technology and the focus areas at General Motors in exoskeletons, most of our work has been on the passive shoulder assist. They are being piloted and implemented for overhead tasks. That activity started in about 2018. It was the most straightforward operation to start with in automotive industry. Overhead work is well known within automotive as being a little more demanding on the neck and shoulders We have guidelines in place to reduce that exposure. However, we are always looking to optimize those tasks with new assembly aids, whether it be power tools and even designs to reduce the duration or the specific times with your hands overhead. We are still studying job rotation. This one has been interesting for us. Believe it or not all of our plants have the same schedules or standardized rotation patterns. Some are more advanced than others, and some aren't rotating at all. So we are focused in on some studies to identify how that impacts usage and how that fits into our criteria for implementation of the shoulder assist specifically. Additionally, as I mentioned earlier, that time duration, we are doing the task for applying a force or as an area that we want to hone in on. We are in the very early stages of testing low back exoskeletons, mainly in our warehousing facilities. This is a little more unique than the passive shoulder, only because we have robust ergo guidelines for manual material handling. In other words, most of the time we are lifting from a preferred work zone, or at least we try to set it up that way. I think there are some areas that have some facilities constraints that we can certainly target. And of course, we do have customer care and warehousing operations, so we're going to focus on those as initial trials. We are entering the second phase of our pilot with Iron Hand. For those that don't know, that's the powered hand grasp assist. We have probably spent the most time on this wearable due to its complexity and that idea, the fact that we're adding an active force to the operator's hand and wrist. We've done our due diligence on studies that have mostly survey-based and have run some EMG and force testing to date. Minimal, but we've done it. And we have some success with some return to work cases, although we have yet to validate these.
Thank you, Ryan. Okay, we're going to go on to David.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is David Brodie. I am a certified professional ergonomist. I have about 25 years of experience in industries, entirely in ergonomics. I've worked for the government, I've worked for consulting groups, and I've worked for Cargill now for just over 11 years in a corporate role. So my current position with Cargill is the North America Ergonomist lead, which basically has me overseeing the ergonomics program for all of our businesses across North America. Additional roles I have right now, currently a co-chair with AEXG, which was a wonderful opportunity for me to get involved with this group, especially from someone outside of the automotive industry, and to really partner with Ryan and learn from everybody within this group. It's really been a key part of my growing knowledge base within the exoskeleton space. And then one of my other key roles right now from a volunteer perspective is I am a co-chair for the National Ergonomics Conference that happens on an annual basis. With respect to Cargill's focus on ergonomics, we are very new to this. We are truly in the pilot testing phase. We are looking at low back and upper extremity exoskeletons to determine where they are applicable in the jobs and tasks we have in our industry and the wide breadth of types of work we do. We are establishing implementation criteria. So really looking at when these things, exoskeletons, should be used, what is the correct fit, and where do they fit within our hierarchy of controls for the types of work we do. So far, we've actually put just over 30 low back exoskeletons in the field at 4 different facilities at this point. And we also have 3 upper extremity units being tested and really, honestly, just being pilot tested out there to try them in various jobs to determine where they might be a good fit for us. We're also looking, because we're new and because our industry is really wasn't the initial focus for the design of exoskeletons, we're really focusing on new technology as well, or at least trying to work with vendors to push us a little bit. So in other words, we have a lot of industry challenges. We have some very challenging work in our industry that is very different. And those challenges are going to result in working with folks to figure out new and modified solutions for us. And that's both, obviously exciting and a key challenge for us. We have to be very patient in how we're doing this. But luckily, we've been able to partner with vendors who are very interested in advancing technology and working with us. Sometimes it's for minor tweaks, and sometimes it's to look at potentially completely new ideas because we have completely different challenges again out there. So we have a lot of work to do, and happy to be part of this process here to help push exoskeletons forward.
Thank you, David. Okay, we're going to go on to Sam.
Thanks, Marisol. Yeah, first of all, warm welcome to all the listeners. Thanks for tuning in today. This is really, really appreciated. My name is Samuel Reimer, and I'm with a company called Ottobock, a medical device company that has been around for quite some time. I'm heading our North American operations for the business unit Ottobock Bionic Exoskeletons, a portfolio solution providers of different exoskeletons for different body parts. I actually ended up in this industry when I focused on this technology 10 years ago, and when I graduated on wearables that either augment or assist different body parts. And I was very fortunate back then that I got to travel to different locations. And 10 years ago, the exo industry as a whole was really still in the very beginnings. And as Marisol mentioned earlier, I was very medical driven. So I was traveling to Japan and California and other parts to try on these medical exoskeletons, some of them incredibly bulky and complex, but at the same time also incredibly fascinating. And I was very skeptical back then. It's like, is that a technology that we can really live in the future? Is this really sort of the future that we're looking at? But I think this interaction with that kind of technology really has driven my interest and fascination really to stay in this industry. So 2 years ago, I joined Ottobock that had just launched a shoulder exoskeleton device. And I was really amazed. First of all, it was lightweight. It didn't impact range of motion. And when you were just wearing it, you could just feel the assistance. And that for me was sort of the key moment to say, wow, exoskeletons really have a future. And it's been groups like AXG that drive awareness, drive best practice, and really drive the entire industry to become even better with the exoskeleton devices. So yeah, really, really looking forward to this exchange today. A little bit about Ottobock. As I mentioned, it's a medical device company. Its core business is actually prosthetics and orthotics. We are big sponsors of the Paralympic Games that just happened in Tokyo as well. And that's really sort of where most of the know-how for our exoskeletons come in. How to individualize these exoskeletons to a vast amount of different people and shapes of people. Ottobock Bionic Exoskeletons focuses on different exoskeletons for different body parts. We'll go into detail why that matters in a bit. Really the core areas there where we operate in with our exoskeletons is anything really where there are blue collar jobs involved, anything from warehousing, logistics, to food processing, to farming, to construction, and obviously the manufacturing industries such as automotive, aviation, and so on. So yeah, that's it on my end, Marisol.
Thank you, Sam. All right, we're going to go to Bill.
Thank you so much, Marisol, and thank you for everybody for being here today. My name is Bill Ballott. I'm with ASTM International. Like Ottobock, we're an older company. We're heading toward our 125th year here very soon. We're one of the largest standards development organizations in the world. And I'm fortunate to be the director for the Global Exotechnology Programs and also the executive director for our Exotechnology Center of Excellence. I've been very lucky to kind of work in this interface between biology and engineering for 20 years or so. And I've really enjoyed that and worked on a number of challenging areas. And I really enjoy this area of exoskeletons that I've gotten in the past 6 or 7 years ago. And time's kind of flown, and we've got a lot of great people we're working with. And if you'll, I'm going to show you a little bit what we're working on right now with our Center of Excellence. I've got a list of a number of projects, but what we kind of focus on here is 3 main areas. One is accelerating standards using research. So we fund research to standards projects. We also do projects that get new information or training or workforce development. And we also work on projects to get better testing and certification for exoskeletons. So this is a list of the different projects. A lot of these have been started in really toward the beginning of this year. So a lot of these are ongoing right now. Some of them are starting to produce some draft standards that are going into our committee F48 on exoskeletons and exosuits. And we'll probably talk a little bit about that more later. But, you know, really our Center of Excellence is here to help the community. And we're really focused on safe and reliable exoskeletons. And that's why I'm excited to work with AEXG and all the folks here on the panel. So thank you very much, Marisol.
Well, thanks, Bill. You certainly have a lot going on in the Center of Excellence for sure. Okay, we're going to go on to our next question, which is around the realm of benefits and challenges. So this one is for our user folks, so David and Ryan. So the question is, what have you seen to be the biggest benefit and the biggest challenge of exoskeletons? And then going along with that, what has been your personal and organizational benefit of joining AEXG? How has the organization helped you deal with those challenges and barriers? We're going to start with David.
All right, and I'm going to focus my answer in a little bit of reverse order. In other words, I'm going to start with the bad news and move to the positives type of thing. So the challenges, and the reason why I want to start with challenges is that, as I mentioned in my bio, the industry I'm in, we are brand new to using this. In fact, I've talked to several other organizations that are in similar industries to Cargill, and there's only 3 of us that are really actively piloting at all. So one of the challenges that we start off with is we have limited knowledge within our industry. And obviously that's going to lead towards a benefit down the road that I'll talk about AEXG about. But that limited knowledge is meaning we're all moving forward at the same pace at this point. We're all trying to figure it out. And those things that we are trying to figure out, the challenges are that when we look at the history of exoskeletons and what the focus was initially in their designs and the industry they were focusing on, is that they were designed for specific types of work and specific environments, really the large industrial and automotive environments where there were consistent exposures. And for us, our type of work is dramatically different. We have very limited static work. We have high repetition work. We have very tough environmental conditions. We also have food safety concerns. There's a lot of things that come into play that create a lot of challenges for us that we have to really consider and work to figure out how this will all be functional for us in the long term. So those are challenges that we're really kind of working through. And especially like several of us have tried to work with upper extremity exoskeletons initially. And it really is, instead of a solution that was designed for a challenge, we're now trying to fit a solution to a task. In other words, the upper extremity exo was very specifically focused on overhead work in the car industry, where you're holding your hand in a specific position. We don't do that. We don't do that in any way, and we do much different things. And our range of motion is different. There's a lot of challenges there. So moving into that space was very difficult for us to figure out how to work into it. So we kind of flipped it around, and one of the things we focused on then was, well, not only do we have upper extremity challenges, we have a lot of low back exposure in our industry. We have a lot of manual material handling. So one of the things that became a benefit for us is that low back exoskeletons are a very straightforward design in that they can fit anywhere in the right, obviously in the right situations, but they are designed for a very basic task, lifting, bending. And that's something that can be applicable in all kinds of industries. So that became a very good entry point for us. And that's where we started to focus. And what really helps, and just to kind of bring a little bit of this together, is that the work that's going on and our ability from Cargill's perspective and my involvement with AEXG is that we have direct access to expertise on folks that have been actively working with these devices. In other words, I've tapped into a group that's been doing this for years, that is 5 to 6 years ahead of where my industry is in stepping into this technology. That's been a critical piece for me. Honestly, I've literally sent emails to Marisol saying, by the way, thanks for doing all this work for us, type of thing. We appreciate all the work you've done ahead of time. And I'll probably say it to Ryan at some point as he shares things with me. There's a lot of things that we work together, and this collaboration within the group is really critical to bring new industries in. And I think when you really want to go to a big benefit of why the expansion of AEXG beyond automotive, where the big benefit comes in is the complete collaboration. In other words, for these devices to have a wide breadth of application, they have to be tested in a wider breadth of environments and challenges. Working with vendors, and that's the thing with this conference as well, when I really thought about this, is that this conference is about innovation. And the vendors that are working on exoskeletons, when you talk to them, they're all innovators, they're all researchers, they're all folks that are trying to design solutions. And they're not just trying to sell you the one thing. Now, obviously, they want to sell what they've made, but there's also a type of person that's in that group that wants to build solutions and wants to think of new ways to do things. And that partnership is something that we are really engaging in from Cargill's perspective, and really trying to bring our industry in to be part of that innovation and work with vendors to push this forward. So we are so new. I really don't have a ton of information that I'd share on any big successes at this point. Realistically, what we're probably looking at is 1 or 2 years down the road, we'll be talking about what are new things that are coming that have been developed because of moving beyond the automotive side. So I think that's a kind of a good way to sum up where I'm at right now.
Well, thank you, David. Companies like yours have definitely introduced a new realm to AEXG outside of automotive. So we definitely thank you for that. Okay, we're going to move on to Ryan.
Yeah, sure. So I guess I'll start off with some personal on the benefits side. I've really enjoyed just involving the team members that I have been able to work with, the men and women that are building our products, that we are investing, showing them that we are investing in their long-term health and well-being. Ergonomics is part of our safety culture, and we consider it the overriding priority in our factories. Another benefit has been just the positive outcomes we get to experience from some of the assistive devices, whether it's someone returning from an injury or we have some experience that provided some immediate reduction in discomfort. And finally, just being a part of helping to evolve the design and help move this technology forward in this space. It's been nice to throw an engineering hat on from time to time. I've been asked to give some design feedback to some of the wearable companies out there. So that's been pretty rewarding. I've enjoyed that part of the course. And it hasn't come without challenges. So certain team members may not feel the immediate benefits or realize what an assistive device can do for them in the long run. One of the biggest challenges I think we've had very recently is just we need better education about the benefits of wearing a device and how certain risks can be reduced for them and how a particular device is actually functioning on their body, how it kind of works for them. It doesn't seem like there's enough information out there readily available or easily accessible for the end user, meaning they're probably not going in and researching scientific journals if they should decide to use one or even be involved in a long-term study to use an exoskeleton. I've mentioned this before in some other talks that initial comfort is so critical. We have had the most success with team members the first time they put on an exoskeleton, but the most success we've had is the ones that kind of work through those initial fitting and comfort issues. They've actually felt some of the long-term benefits, and we've had success with those people. But however, due to production interruptions and instability in our workforce or in certain jobs, we have not really been able to collect very meaningful long-term data to help us with a strategic implementation. So that's been the biggest challenge, I would say, so far. In terms of the products, I believe they are improving yearly, if not monthly sometimes, some even adding minor tweaks or additions to their current designs. It's hard to keep up with that sometimes. However, a trend we have picked up on is as this comfort increases and they add certain features, the complexity and the weight and the donning and doffing seems to be increasing with it. So I pointed that out as we kind of test the new features and the devices that are coming out. Benefits for me, AEXG, upon first joining, we were not as far along at GM, and for me personally, not knowing about the exoskeletons and the technology out there, we were not as far along as some other automotive manufacturers in the rollout and the testing of the products. I thought the presentations on the user experiences and testing methods were instrumental for me in providing a starting point for the introduction to a workforce, and some initial suggestions were very helpful on the methodologies for a rollout. It also helped me define where and when to begin a possible pilot study, and even provided some insight on efficient implementation strategies, if you will. It also created new relationships and connections for me with inventors, the manufacturers of the devices, suppliers of the devices, academia, a ton of connections in that area, and ergonomists in so many different fields of work and study. The knowledge base has certainly helped me overcome some challenges in understanding the tech, as well as being able to update my leadership on the progress and the advancements of wearables.
Well, thank you, Ryan. And I know, we say automotives as it's all the same, but, every company is different with different cultures and different challenges. So definitely General Motors has brought a unique perspective to the group as well. So we're going to slightly switch gears because, again, I heard the challenges, but then the huge benefits, the promise of these devices into the future. So what do we need to get these devices into the mainstream outside the users, outside the current users, the current producers, the folks that are listening to this right now? What do we need to do to make this happen? We're going to go to you, Bill, first.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much. I think, one of our desires to get this to more people is to be able to help more people, right? As Ryan was sort of saying, these are assistive devices. They help people by augmenting them. They help them be better. They help protect them. There's a lot of adjectives you could use with this type of technology. But I think, in order to get there, we need a framework where people can have trust in the system. They can feel comfortable that the systems are going to be safe and reliable. The people that are buying them have a good idea of how they're going to perform and how they can best help them, and what are the best applications for these devices, so that they don't get put in the wrong place where they can't do what they're meant to do. And so, obviously from an ASTM perspective and our Center of Excellence perspective, we think one of the best ways to sort of set that framework up is through a combination of standards, a combination of training and workforce development, and a combination of testing and certifications. And that includes not just the devices themselves, but the people using those devices, having personal certifications and things like that for the people going to use the devices, so that people have a level of awareness and can have reasonable expectations of what these things can and cannot do. So that's what I would say.
Thank you, Bill. Thanks for that. Sam, we're going to go to you.
So what needs to happen to make exos mainstream? There are many, many things that can be done. Today, I want to focus really on three parts, given the time that we have. One is user acceptance, one is driving awareness, and then last but not least, how to make exos a habit. The first part, is really, really quite crucial. It's not understanding just the workplace itself, but also understanding the exo solution and making sure that the exo solution fits to the workplace. If those 2 points are already given, then it really boils down to the last part, which is the user acceptance. And the user acceptance is driven by, does the user understand the benefit of the device? Why is the user using the device, and is the user seeing the benefit of using it? And that is obviously given mostly when the exo really supports the workplace that person is working at. But also what also drives user acceptance is leadership on board. Are the peers supporting the user wearing the device? Is there education happening on exoskeletons when implementing it? Are important stakeholders educated, such as unions, safety and health folks, industrial athletes, etc. All of that is really, really quite crucial, and I think I would call it a safety culture. And really making safety a habit will really drive the adoption of exoskeletons when there's a lot of education, a lot of talks happening on this topic. The second thing that really is important to make exos a mainstream is awareness. From a company like ours, we would call it marketing. Marketing has many different work streams, such as AXG, where we really just connect, share best practices, and talk about the do's and don'ts of implementing exoskeletons. But I think the finest marketing that is out there, and we are seeing that in the industry, is word of mouth. We have companies like Toyota, GM, Cargill that really start to adopt these kinds of technologies and share their thoughts on it. And I think this is really the great thing. And to be in this first wave of adoption is incredibly thrilling. I think another really important part to driving the awareness is studies and research. And given the youth of the technology, it's really quite remarkable how much research there's already going on, specifically in North America, but also in Europe and other parts of this world. And there's been already a tremendous amount of studies being published on really the efficacy of the devices, and long-term studies are starting to emerge. And this obviously will play a pivotal role in where sort of this technology finds its position. And last but not least, also where Bill comes in with ASTM, regulation and standards are also very important, not just for vendors making it more standard across the devices, but also for the users. When are certain technologies really good in, when are they not so good in, etc. The last part of the 3 points I wanted to just talk is making exos a habit. And for that, it really boils down to culture change management. Our approach really is to implement exos, not just by sending the devices, but really educating all the stakeholders, all the leadership, to really make sure that the benefit of the devices are understood. And then there are different approaches that companies then take, either making it mandatory PPE, and that can be very effective. And some others tend more to make it voluntary. Either way, education really is key to make the users understand why this kind of technology is important to use. Now, I've talked a lot about making exos mainstream. There are two things I do want to make sure when I call exos as mainstream. Exos really still are in this hierarchy of controls, which is really important to understand. So if you have questions what that means and where exos fit in, this is the group to join, because we talk about this every single day. And there's a clear position where exos fit into this hierarchy of controls. If that is understood and the workplace still has space for exos, then, you know, thumbs up. You're on a good path to try it out. The second part, though, is really understanding, does the right exoskeleton fit to the workplace? As David mentioned earlier, they tried on upper extremity exoskeletons, but understood that the use case is actually fairly different to other industries. So really making sure that the use case fits to the right exo and vice versa is really quite key. Yeah, I think I've said enough, Marisol, and I hope it didn't take too much of your time.
Oh, that's wonderful. It's always great to get your perspective as the unique producer on the board. So definitely always welcome your thoughts. Thank you. Okay, so now we're going to move on to Bill. So Bill, you are the one probably in the most kind of holistic, kind of comprehensive role, kind of taking in the information from all these various groups in the realm of exoskeletons. How do you think groups like your own, ASTM and AXG, can really drive the activity? And then what can conference attendees do to make it happen, to make it all mainstream? And they may be thinking also, maybe they're not exoskeleton people, but maybe they're from the world of XR. How does this all work?
Right. And so what you need to do, you're right on it, Marisol. You have to find out what are the common challenges. I think that's the first place to start. If you're in XR or if you're in any kind of wearables, one of the things you're probably thinking about is some of the things that have been mentioned today. User acceptance. You're probably thinking about human machine interface. You may be thinking about comfort and fit. These are all things that come up over and over again in the exoskeleton world. We're all concerned with those things. Maybe even corporate culture change, change management. There's a lot of things there. I think that's the commonality that we start from. And then we look how we can take the challenges that we see from our particular technology focus and leverage that to help everybody. And so we're all in a community together. You could call it the wearables community. Certainly, we would love to have people join AXG, and we would love to have people join and participate in the standards development in F48. And anybody can join from anywhere around the world. There's no limitations for that. And so I think, what we bring to the table, this group as a whole, is a place where people can come together, talk about what they've tried, what they haven't tried, what they're thinking about trying, share different perspectives. And so I think people from the wearable community could do the same thing. Even though we may talk about exoskeletons, there may be something around a VR headset that could help all of us and vice versa. So I think that's a good place for us to all start and to think about working together.
Hey, thank you, Bill. So really that concludes our panel. So amazing insight from everybody. So I want to thank all the panelists for contributing to this and for their preparation. On a personal note, it is wonderful to be on the board of this organization. So these folks are not only brilliant in their area, but they're also my friends, and they're just a kind of a phone call away from all their amazing insights. We've been kind of showing this slide all along during the latter portion of the presentation. So if you haven't taken note by now, this is our website, and we also have a LinkedIn page. So if you're interested in joining our organization, please go into LinkedIn and click to join, and we'll approve that for you. So again, if you are a member of an organization that is using exoskeletons or is interested in trialing them or just thinking about them. That's one group. If you're a producer, an inventor of these devices, thinking of going in that venture, you're the second group. And then really the third group is for anybody within a research capacity or some sort of organization that is somehow connected to these various devices. So thank you, everybody. And thank you for listening to our panel.